you're standing in the produce aisle, right?
Yeah.
And you're holding this shiny organic apple.
Yeah, the one that costs like almost twice as much.
Exactly. It costs almost twice as much as the conventional one right next to it.
Wow.
And, I mean, you were probably paying that premium because you think, well, it was grown without pesticides.
Right. Or you think it just magically has significantly more vitamins.
Yeah, exactly. But according to the latest agricultural science, neither of those assumptions is entirely true.
It is honestly the ultimate modern grocery store dilemma. I mean, we all want to do the right thing for our health, for our families, and the planet.
Oh, for sure.
But the sheer volume of marketing noise, like the sea of little green stickers, the non-GMO badges, those rustic farm-fresh cardboard signs, it makes it incredibly difficult to know what the right thing actually is.
It's overwhelming.
It really is. We are practically drowning in labels, but we're completely starved for actual context.
I completely agree, which is exactly why we wanted to create an audio deep dive today that is dedicated to cutting through that exact noise. We've got a really comprehensive stack of source material here, analyzing the rigorous science behind organic versus conventional farming.
Which is so needed right now.
Right. So our mission today is to separate the marketing hype from the actual scientific reality. We want to help you, the listener, make informed choices that protect both your long-term health and, your weekly grocery budget.
Yeah, without falling for the whole guilt trip marketing thing.
Precisely. Okay, let's unpack this. Before we can even figure out which apple to actually put in the cart, we really need to know the actual rules of the agricultural game. So what do these two major labels actually mean on a structural level?
That is exactly where we need to start, because honestly, the definition disconnect is huge.
Right.
Let's look at the actual regulatory standards first. So organic farming is a system governed by very specific, strict rules that are focused heavily on the underlying ecosystem.
Okay, so it's more about the soil.
Exactly. The primary goal is to actively avoid the use of synthetic inputs. So that means no lab-created pesticides, no artificial fertilizers, and definitely no genetically modified organisms or GMOs.
Got it.
Instead, organic farmers prioritize soil health through things like crop rotation, they encourage biodiversity, and they utilize naturally derived fertilizers like compost or manure.
Right, so it's a very intentional, highly regulated philosophy of land management.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But then we have the other side of the aisle, right?
Yep.
Conventional farming. And I feel like the word conventional sometimes gets a bad rap. Almost like it just implies, I don't know, the old careless industrial way.
Oh, yeah. People definitely assume that.
But our sources paint a very different picture of what conventional agriculture actually represents today.
They absolutely do. Conventional farming is essentially the application of modern agricultural science and technology, and it's designed to maximize efficiency, predictability, and total food production.
So it's very tech forward.
Incredibly tech forward. It is a massive, incredibly complex logistical system.
Yeah.
I mean, the primary objective here is scale.
Right. Feeding the world.
Exactly. These methods are exactly what allow us to provide abundant, affordable food to literally billions of people globally, all while maintaining established food safety standards. So they aren't just, throwing seeds in the dirt and blasting them with random
You
chemicals.
don't say about the Wild West.
No, not at all. It's a highly engineered approach to feeding a massive population.
So to look at the mechanics of it, conventional farming is kind of like a massive, highly optimized public transit system.
Right. I like that.
Yeah, it gets millions of people where they need to go. It's economically accessible. It runs constantly, and it moves the masses.
Yeah.
Whereas organic farming is a bit more like a meticulously crafted boutique bicycle.
Yes.
Like it has a different environmental philosophy. It's crafted with this intense focus on the immediate ecological surroundings. But realistically, a fleet of bicycles alone just isn't going to move millions of commuters across a sprawling metropolis.
What's fascinating here is how that analogy highlights the scale and the intent. I mean, they are just fundamentally different approaches to solving the problem of human caloric needs. They aren't inherent enemies.
Right. They're just different tools.
Exactly. But your boutique bicycle analogy brings us to one of the most persistent misconceptions we found in the source material.
Oh, the pesticide thing.
Yes. When people buy that organic apple, they almost universally assume it was grown without any chemicals at all. Like, they equate organic completely with pesticide-free.
Right, and it's such a common misconception that organic means zero pesticides. I used to think that too.
Most people do.
In reality, though, the organic label just dictates the origin of the pesticide, right?
Uh-huh.
Like, organic farmers are still using naturally derived compounds like copper sulfate or sulfur instead of synthetic lab-created chemicals.
That's right.
But they are absolutely still spraying the crops because, well, they have to, or the insects would just decimate the yield.
Precisely. Organic food is definitely not pesticide-free. They just use a different chemical toolkit. And this is where the science gets really critical, because the word natural does not automatically mean harmless.
Wait, really? So natural pesticides can be dangerous?
Well, yeah, some naturally derived organic pesticides, like the copper sulfate you just mentioned, actually require higher application rates than modern synthetic
Oh,
alternatives.
wow. I had no idea.
Yeah, and copper can actually accumulate in the soil over time. So the distinction isn't whether or not the crop was sprayed. The distinction is simply the origin of the substance used.
That context completely changes how we evaluate the choice, doesn't it? It kind of takes the emotion out of the label and allows us to just look at the actual biochemistry.
It really does.
Which brings us logically to the next step. If the agricultural inputs are different, so if one system is relying on compost and natural pest deterrents, while the other is using targeted synthetic nitrogen and pesticides, how does that change the internal architecture of the plant?
This is the big question.
Right, like is the organic apple actually packing a stronger nutritional punch?
This is where the science really demands that we look closely. And the truth is incredibly nuanced. When researchers analyze the nutritional profiles of these foods, they do find that organic foods often contain slightly higher levels of certain secondary metabolites.
Secondary metabolites, so like phytonutrients and antioxidants.
Exactly. Specifically phytonutrients and antioxidants.
But why is there a difference there? Looking at the research stack we have, it seems like this is directly tied to plant stress.
That is exactly the mechanism. It's known as the plant stress hypothesis.
Okay, break that down for us.
So because organic crops are generally protected by less potent, naturally derived pesticides, they experience more environmental stress on a daily basis.
They're getting beat up a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. They have to fight harder against insects, against weeds, against diseases. And to survive that, the plant produces its own internal defense chemicals.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right. And it just so happens that a plant's defense chemicals, these phytonutrients and antioxidants we're talking about, are actually highly beneficial to human health.
Wow.
So the slightly higher antioxidant profile in organic produce is quite literally the result of the plant having a slightly tougher life.
So we are essentially benefiting from the plant's natural defense mechanisms.
Yay.
That is fascinating.
It's really cool biology.
But what about the core building blocks? Like if I'm eating spinach specifically for iron, or oranges for vitamin C, or broccoli for fiber and protein, does the organic plant stress mechanism actually multiply those macronutrients too?
It does not. And this is a massive point of clarification in the sources.
Okay.
When we look at the primary metabolites, so the essential nutrients that your body absolutely relies on to function, like protein, fiber, essential vitamins, key minerals, the differences between organic and conventional foods are negligible.
Negligible.
Yeah, often they are statistically invisible. Conventional farming's use of synthetic nitrogen fertilizers often allows the plant to grow larger and faster.
Which dilutes it.
Right. It might slightly dilute the concentration of certain antioxidants compared to like a smaller organic plant, but the absolute volume of the core vitamins and fiber remains completely intact.
Okay, so if I'm walking into the store and I'm intentionally buying this massive, expensive plastic tub of organic spinach, because I genuinely think I'm getting double the iron or, double the vitamin C compared to the conventional spinach,
Yeah.
I'm basically buying into a very expensive placebo effect regarding those core nutrients.
In terms of those specific core nutrients, yes, you absolutely are.
Wow.
The organic label is simply not a magic multiplier for vitamins. The structural components of the food that actually drive your cellular health remain remarkably similar regardless of the farming method.
That's a huge shift in perspective.
It is. The research is incredibly clear on this. A person who eats 5 servings of conventional produce daily is going to enjoy vastly greater measurable health benefits than someone who eats very little produce simply because they're holding out, waiting until they can afford to buy organic.
So if the internal nutrition, the actual payload of the plant is essentially the same, that really forces us to look at the exterior, right? The skin of the apple.
Exactly.
Because this is where the battle against pests actually happens, and frankly, where the majority of consumer fear lives. Here's where it gets really interesting. We have to talk about the pesticide panic.
Yes. The panic is real.
Even if organic uses natural pesticides,
Yeah.
people are just deeply concerned about the synthetic residues left on conventional food.
It is probably the most emotional part of the conversation. And honestly, we are hardwired to worry about invisible chemical compounds on the food we feed our families. It makes sense.
Absolutely.
To be completely objective, the sources do confirm that organic foods generally have lower synthetic pesticide residues compared to conventional foods. That is just a factual metric.
Right. But looking at the data stack we have here, I noticed the FDA and the USDA's residue testing shows that well over 90% of conventional produce tests far below the established safety limits. So how do toxicologists actually determine what that limit is? Because, trace amounts sounds really scary until you understand the math behind it.
This is where we have to introduce a fundamental concept of toxicology, which is the dose-response relationship.
The dose makes the poison.
Exactly. The foundational rule of toxicology is that the dose makes the poison. I mean, even water is toxic if you drink too much of it.
Right.
So when regulatory agencies like the EPA or the FDA set safety limits for synthetic pesticide residues, they don't just guess. They find what's called the NOAEL.
NOAEL.
Yes, the no observed adverse effect level. That is the maximum amount of a substance an animal can consume daily over an entire lifetime without any negative health effects.
Okay, and then if I'm reading this correctly, the regulators take that historically safe level and they divide it by 100 or sometimes even 1,000 just to build in this massive buffer of safety for humans, particularly for children.
Exactly. So the legal limit for a pesticide residue on, say, a conventional apple is set at a fraction of what is scientifically known to cause harm.
That is a massive buffer.
It really is. We aren't talking about vegetables dripping in toxic chemicals here. We are talking about highly regulated microscopic trace amounts that are chemically incapable of triggering a toxic response in the human body at those volumes.
I think a good way to visualize this for the listener is to understand how these chemicals behave in the real world. Synthetic pesticides are engineered a bit like ice cubes on a hot sidewalk.
That's a great visual.
Yeah, they're designed to do a very specific job, protect the plant from a specific pest, and then they chemically degrade. They undergo photodegradation from the sun and hydrolysis from the rain.
Right.
So by the time that food is actually harvested, shipped, and reaches your plate, the active chemical has heavily degraded.
That's a perfect mechanism to highlight because pesticides have a half-life. They don't just sit on the fruit forever in their original potent state. And furthermore, simply taking the time to wash your fruits and vegetables thoroughly under running tap water significantly reduces whatever trace residues remain. And that goes for both conventional and organic categories.
So to put this all in perspective, if these trace elements are degrading in the sun, they are heavily monitored by regulators set at 100 times below the baseline of biological harm and then finally washed off in our sinks.
Yeah.
Agonizing over conventional produce feels like a massive miscalculation of risk.
It absolutely is.
Like if someone completely avoids buying a conventional bell pepper out of fear of a microscopic, degrading residue, and instead they eat, a highly processed, nutrient-void snack, avoiding that conventional produce is actually the scientifically unhealthier choice.
It is a devastating trap that millions of consumers fall into every single day. For the vast majority of people, the proven, undeniable health benefits of consuming more fruits and vegetables far outweigh any theoretical concerns about highly regulated trace pesticide residues.
Right. The math just doesn't support the fear.
It doesn't. The vitamins, the fiber, the hydration, the phytonutrients in conventional produce, they are actively fighting disease and building health in your body every single time you eat them. Avoiding them just because of label fear is a massive net loss for your health.
It's almost like we've let perfect become the enemy of good.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, perfect might just be a marketing illusion anyway.
Exactly.
But let's zoom out for a second. We've talked about the individual piece of fruit. We've talked about the internal biochemistry, the external toxicology. But many people choose organic not just for their own bodies, but for the ecological footprint of the farm itself.
Right. Sustainability.
Yeah. What do our sources actually say about the environmental big picture?
Well, the environmental argument is quite complex. Organic farming's emphasis on building healthier soil, utilizing crop rotation, and reducing synthetic chemical runoff that does actively support long-term local ecosystem health.
Okay.
It is a system deeply designed to work cyclically with nature.
But conventional agriculture isn't just, a 1950s stereotype of crop dusters indiscriminately blanketing fields with chemicals anymore, right?
Not at all.
Because if conventional farming is built on efficiency and scale, Surely they are optimizing how they use those expensive resources.
They absolutely are, and this is where agricultural technology is just moving at lightning speed. We are seeing widespread adoption of what's called precision farming in the conventional space.
Precision farming.
Yes. Today's conventional farmers use drones with multispectral imaging to detect exactly which specific patches of a field are experiencing pest stress. They use GPS-guided tractors and soil sensors that map nitrogen levels yard by yard.
Oh, wow. So instead of just blindly spraying an entire 500-acre farm, they're using this variable rate technology to microdose fertilizer and pesticides drop by drop, only exactly where the plant actually needs it.
Exactly. And this precision mechanism drastically reduces total chemical use. It prevents the agricultural runoff that damages local waterways, and it improves overall efficiency.
That's incredible.
They are using advanced data to effectively shrink their environmental footprint while still maintaining that totally necessary global scale.
Which really brings us to a concept I like to call food system triage. Environmental sustainability simply isn't determined by a single label.
No, it's not.
Think about a locally grown conventional tomato. It was grown using precision agriculture. It traveled maybe 20 miles in a truck to your local grocery store, and it supports the regional economy.
Right.
Compare that to a certified organic tomato that was grown in a massive monoculture facility across the globe, packaged in layers of plastic, and then flown via refrigerated cargo plane to reach your aisle. The carbon footprint of that organic label vastly outweighs the farming method.
That is the critical nuance that gets lost in the marketing.
Yeah.
The organic label does not account for food miles. It doesn't account for the carbon emissions of global supply chains, and it certainly does not account for food waste. Supporting local farmers, eating produce that is actually in the season, and critically reducing the food waste in our own kitchens that contributes just as much to a sustainable food system as defaulting to the organic sticker.
It really sounds like obsessing exclusively over the organic sticker is kind of like obsessing over the exact aerodynamic engineering of our running shoes while completely ignoring whether we're actually, going for a run.
That is a brilliant way to put it.
We are focusing on this micro detail while totally missing the entire macro lifestyle. And when we look at the data on human longevity, the conversation completely shifts, doesn't it?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the data on long-term wellness is incredibly clear. When epidemiologists and nutrition scientists look at the strongest predictors of long-term health, vitality, and disease prevention, they don't screen for organic certification.
They don't care about the sticker.
Right. They look at systemic daily dietary patterns.
And rather than just saying, eat your veggies, what are the actual mechanisms of those patterns? Because our sources highlight that it's really about the structural displacement of bad calories with good ones, right?
Precisely. The heavy hitters are these: consistently eating a high volume of complex carbohydrates and fiber through fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, consuming healthy fats, and prioritizing quality protein sources.
The basics.
The absolute basics. And what this does mechanistically is it stabilizes blood sugar and improves gut microbiome diversity. And by filling your diet with these nutrient-dense foods, you structurally displace the ultra-processed foods.
The refined sugars and industrial seed oils.
Exactly. The things that actively drive chronic inflammation. Whether the tomato providing that dietary fiber is organic or conventional has a fundamentally microscopic impact on your lifespan compared to whether tomatoes are simply a consistent part of your routine in the first place.
So what does this all mean? How do you, the listener, actually apply this complex science the next time you're standing under those fluorescent grocery store lights with an empty cart and a budget to manage?
It's all about resource allocation.
Right. Our sources distill this down into some incredibly practical, smart shopping tips. First, if you have the budget and it aligns with your environmental philosophy, go ahead and buy organic for the foods you eat most frequently. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it.
No, not at all.
But, and this is the crucial part, confidently and proudly choose conventional options when organic is unavailable or pushes your budget too far.
Yeah.
Do not feel an ounce of guilt.
Exactly. To maximize both your biological health and your economic resources, focus your attention on local, seasonal produce, completely regardless of the label.
Seasonality is huge.
It is. When produce is in season locally, it hasn't traveled thousands of miles, which means it was actually allowed to ripen fully on the vine, reaching its absolute peak nutritional density before harvest.
And whatever you buy, just utilize the ultimate, scientifically proven residue reduction technology your kitchen sink.
Yes, just wash it.
Wash your produce thoroughly under running tap water to remove dirt, bacteria, and any of those degrading trace residues. But the absolute golden rule here is really about where you allocate your financial resources.
Yeah.
Spend your food budget on nutrient-dense, real, whole foods rather than dropping premium money on highly processed snacks, even if those snacks boast an organic label. Because let's be honest, an organic cookie is still fundamentally just refined sugar and empty calories.
That is such an important distinction for the consumer. We really want to remind everyone listening that biological consistency always beats performative perfection.
I love that phrase, performative perfection.
It's so true, though. The ultimate goal of human nutrition isn't to win an imaginary proxy war between organic and conventional labels. The goal is to choose real, whole foods consistently, structurally displacing the processed foods that actually cause harm. That is where the undeniable, evidence-based health benefits live.
It just takes so much of the anxiety and pressure off the whole shopping experience. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be consistent with real food.
It does. It really frees you up. But before we wrap up, this deep dive raises an important question, something we didn't explicitly find in the standard marketing advice, but that logically follows everything we've uncovered in the science today.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
If both conventional and organic farming have highly unique, proven benefits, conventional providing incredible, affordable global scale through precision technology, and organic providing exceptional soil stewardship and biodiversity, what if our cultural obsession with treating them as enemies is actually holding agriculture back?
Holding it back how? Like by forcing consumers to pick a side.
Exactly. By dividing consumers into those who can afford organic and those who can't, we were distracted from demanding systemic, industry-wide improvement.
Oh, that's a great point.
Perhaps the next frontier of agricultural science isn't about expanding the organic aisle. It's about demanding that the best, most sustainable soil-building technologies of organic farming be deeply integrated into the precision, high-yield frameworks of all conventional farming.
Hybrid approach.
Exactly. Imagine a unified food system where we don't have to choose between affordability and sustainability, where every single piece of affordable produce is grown in a way that is as relentlessly beneficial to the local ecosystem as it is to our bodies.
Now, that is a truly revolutionary way to look at the future of our food system. So the next time you're walking down that produce aisle and you're staring down that jagged little divide between the expensive organic apple and the affordable conventional one, remember the reality of the science.
Yes.
The plant biochemistry is incredibly similar. The trace residues are heavily monitored and actively degrading, and the muddy waters of grocery store marketing are deep. But your choice is actually incredibly simple.
It really is.
Just buy the apple, wash it, eat it, and know that by simply choosing whole foods, you're already winning the game.